How long has it been? Like 2 months since I did my last video? Either way, I'm really happy to be back. So the first thing that I wanted to do was do a review of a movie that I just saw this most recent Friday. The film is called Upgrade. It's from Blumhouse Productions, and I went in knowing nothing except that in the trailers it shows some really interesting cinematography, and if you guys are familiar with what I like going to see when it comes to a movie, it's primarily visual effects and cinematography. So the basic premise is that the main character, Gray, gets paralyzed from the neck down after a mugging that also happens to take the life of his wife. After a few months of being a quadriplegic, this man comes up to him and says, "Hey, I have this chip. It will, if we implant it into your spine, it will give you control of your body once again." But little did Gray know was that the chip actually has a mind of its own. It refers to itself as STEM, it talks to him, only he can hear it, and Gray decides to use the situation and the chip to hunt down the people who killed his wife. And on top of that, the interesting part of the relationship between Gray and STEM is that STEM can actually take control of Gray's body whenever Gray lets him, or he can suppress it and just control his body on his own. Let's go into the pros and cons. This film came across to me as a kind of mix between a $6 Million Man and maybe a better version of that Death Wish Bruce Willis movie that came out a little while ago that really wasn't that good. So basically, it is a familiar story. It is a revenge story. But with my opinion when it comes to cliches is that cliches are good as long as you make it to where something has changed or it's being showcased in a different light or from a different point of view. And I've never seen this type of revenge story told in a futuristic, dirty world. And I enjoyed that because in science fiction, I feel like we get the best themes and messages. That's why I love films like Looper and Blade Runner. And actually that goes into my second pro, which is the themes of Upgrade. I love when a film can make me think, and when it makes me think, I start to analyze what everything means. Like, the first theme that I noticed was the idea of really what's better, retro or modern, because Gray is a very analog person. He likes getting his hands dirty, he prefers to do things himself instead of relying on technology, and hell, when we first meet him, he's fixing up an old classic car all by himself, not relying on anything else. While he's doing that, pretty much everybody around him, and actually I'm pretty sure everybody that they show around him, really relies heavily on technology, which is one other thing that you see a lot in futuristic Earth-based sci-fi. So it's kind of a cliche, but it's one of those cliches that I can never really get enough of. And that's how technology affects us as people. I loved the character of Gray because he felt like more of a tangible human being with actual humanistic qualities, but everyone else around him was so reliant on modern technology that some people have begun upgrading themselves because of it to be better. And many films in the genre tackle that, showing that human reliance on technology causes us to lose a bit of our humanity along the way. And that's why we can really sympathize or even empathize with the replicants in the Blade Runner series. They act more human than even humans do. And back to the subject of theming, there was also another one that I really enjoyed, and it was the idea of giving up control, literally and figuratively, because giving up control to anything else, just in this film feels very violating regardless of the intention, good or bad. Logan Marshall Green, or as I called him at first, a discount Tom Hardy, since he looks a lot like Tom Hardy in many angles of the film, gives a very fantastic performance. I mean, he finds a way to balance tragedy, humor, and just being a badass, because you could tell he did his own stunts in this film. And the moment where I really began to love his character was after the accident. So, like, they show a period where it's been a few months, and he's just sitting in his chair, not moving, not really showing any emotion, not really talking. At the most, I think that they would show a little bit of anger, but mostly he just looked like he was dead inside. Then one day, when somebody is helping him shave because his beard has grown to an outrageous proportion, you just see him, he's looking at himself in the mirror, and suddenly he starts breaking down and crying, and I looked at that and I thought, you were sitting there for a few months, and you didn't grieve really once? And I was thinking to myself, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would immediately break down, and really, the entire thing brought a tear to my eye, and you know that when a performance can actually bring a tear to my eye, then they're doing a very admirable job. And on top of that, Gray is a very good character, very fleshed out, thanks to us being able to see him at his lowest, when he can't even take care of himself because he's a quadriplegic. And back to the action sequences, still focusing on him, whenever he gets into a fight for the first time, he lets STEM take over, and so we get this moment where he's dodging and blocking and countering people, and while he's doing this, he's just looking at everything that he's doing in horror, and it got to the point where he starts begging the guy who's attacking him to stop before Gray kills him, which I know made my wife laugh the most. Now, as I said, what I mostly came for was the cinematography, particularly in the action sequences. The filmmakers had the unique idea of steadying the camera with Gray's body movements. So, like, if he's laying down on the floor, it'll, like, adjust to where you're watching it, and then every time he moved, he would just move with it, and then every time he would throw a punch, it would kind of, like, move with him. It's like, I'm probably not doing it justice the way that I'm describing it, but just, it really felt awesome, and I felt like it kind of played a lot into that theme of giving into being controlled from an outside source. Now, the movie is not perfect, despite the praise that I am giving it. I would actually say that the weakest part of the movie, and really my only complaint, is with the supporting characters. The performances, for the most part, were fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we're not given enough of a character's motivations or personalities. Like the villains of the film, as well as a detective who shows up every once in a while, who's investigating the death of Gray's wife. Like, I knew nothing about the detective. She was just a cop, and honestly, every time that she came on the screen, the movie did drag just a little bit, but it wasn't enough to really falter my experience or halt my experience. It was just that it was noticeable. And as far as the villains, well, they had some interesting things about them as far as their abilities, and they were basically just cookie-cutter villains and cookie-cutter henchmen. The ringleader, who my wife described as, and this is a direct quote, looking like the love child of Jared Leto and Vincent Kartheiser, which Jared Leto everybody knows, and Vincent Kartheiser, if you don't know him, he played Pete Campbell in the show Mad Men, which you guys should watch. It's a really good show. Anyway, I'm rambling again. And while this love child that my wife called Vincent Leto, or Jared Kartheiser, or whatever she called him, it felt like he had potential with, to be a cool character, and with an interesting backstory and motivation, especially since they gave him quite a few lines where he's just talking about his ideology, which I thought was kind of cool. He's not given enough, and it made every little interesting ability that he had that his lackeys didn't, it just made all of them seem a bit wasted. On the same subject of characters, but being more specific, so I am going to turn this into a second con, one of the characters that I hated the most on a writing as well as an acting standpoint was sadly Gray's wife, Asha, played by Melanie Vallejo? I don't know how to pronounce her name. The character was extremely annoying, being in that group that relies too heavily on technology, but to an outrageous level. And also the actress made her come across as a basic cunt. And that took me out of the film every time, because, whenever she was on screen, I was thinking of just two things. One, her shitty acting was not mixing well at all with Marshall Green's good acting. And two, I didn't see why Gray married her. There was no chemistry between the characters, and it just didn't seem right that the kind of girl that Gray would be with, was like this, especially because he prefers doing things the old-fashioned way, whereas she's just like, oh, why would you want to do this? This is so stupid. I mean, hell, he even offers to make a pizza for dinner from scratch, which is actually pretty cool. And she's just like, why would you want to do that? We have technology here that would make it so much easier, because, she doesn't think that humans shouldn't be doing things on their own. They should just heavily rely on technology to do stuff so that they have no part in any of this. And sadly, this made Gray's motivations later in the film fall a bit flat. I believed that Gray loved his wife, mainly because of the performance from Marshall Green, but I couldn't believe how it was put down on paper, so really that was honestly the part that ruined the movie for me a little bit. In the end, I really did enjoy, In the end, I really enjoyed Upgrade. It's the kind of sci-fi movie that I go out to see, and that I hope that I've left the theater having experienced it. It's got deep themes that I've come to expect from this type of original film in the genre, a great main character, a concept that has been overdone in the past, that's been breathed a bit of new life into, and it was surprisingly well paced. The movie is only about, an hour and a half long, give or take a couple of minutes, and it's great to see that there's little to no drag. However, it being so short and feeling like it came so quickly, I do personally feel like they could have put a little bit more onto that main villain that I was talking about, because he was really interesting from a basic standpoint. I just wanted to know a little bit more about him. And, I mean, really, they had enough time to do it. And as I said, the film falters mainly because of lackluster supporting characters. But I do definitely think that this is a movie to see during the summer, especially if you want to see something that you will have fun with, but also has a bit more depth than maybe a normal summer film. And that's where I will end this review. If you enjoyed the video, please do not hesitate to hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, click on that subscribe button to keep up to date with everything that I do on the channel. Now, all that's left to say is just thank you for watching, and farewell until the next video. Also, real quick, I actually just remembered that I didn't really mention this. I probably mentioned it in yesterday's video, but I don't even remember. You guys already know I've been dropping the ball for a while on making videos, and there were a couple of reasons why, but I explained them in the video yesterday. But basically, right now I'm doing catch-up with a few of my videos. I've got 4 other reviews that I need to do. I'm probably going to get them done today, the same day that I'm recording them, but I'm going to pace them out over the next couple of days. But right now, like I said, I have 4 reviews. The next one will be Avengers Infinity War, because I've seen that 3 times and I need to say stuff about it. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to start working on the next video. Bye, guys.